Hi, and welcome to Gamer Chat again. I'm CabXYZ. Joining me today is Soundman, Iron Jade for the first time, and Scrotus Killmeister. This is Gamer Chat for the week of October 7th, and we are coming to you today with a few topics that, well, one made news over the week, and second one is something we've been tossing around for a while, and we're going to finally get to talk about. But the first big topic is the passing of Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, the former CEO of Apple, who took the company from almost bankruptcy and made it into the giant that it is today. Does anyone have comments?
It is sad to see him go. While I'm not an Apple fan myself, he really did revolutionize the image that had been attached to Apple before. I would say before he introduced the iPod to the mainstream public, I would say Apple was an irrelevant company. One of those, you know, geeky side projects that kids did to make themselves feel better, and it went from that to being, a multinational corporation with people clamoring to get their products in long lines during Christmas.
Yeah, the I series was good, but I think in the efforts to simplify, he's also taken the option of individuality out of it, and unfortunately, that appealed to a lot of people. He definitely had an eye for business, but he also had an eye for control, which made me not a fan.
I can't say that I was ever much of a fan of Steve Jobs or any of the products that he pushed necessarily. His operating system is clearly superior to Windows, and the fact that it does just work. However, him and his company as a whole seem to me more of just bad business practice, and I can't be one to support it. Although no person should have to go through the hardships he did through cancer.
Yes, he suffered a good bit before he passed, and he kept it pretty well under wraps. And like Jade said, I would not wish cancer on anyone, especially not pancreatic cancer. And having a friend who suffered through that and died recently, that's tough, and I'm sure his family will miss him greatly.
Yeah, and also the competition with Microsoft, it's I don't know if it's what that's going to affect or not, but he was a driving force for Apple, so it'll be interesting to see how things progress in the future.
Yeah, I mean, he did bring something like the iPod into, as far as gaming, at least Apple on a mobile standpoint leads the way. I mean, Android's good and heading in that direction, but there's no unified platform, and that's one thing that Apple has over all of it. And I mean, they even have Nintendo. Nintendo sees Apple as their direct competitors instead of Sony. I mean, both of those are in the same space, but I mean, Apple has done a lot for mobile gaming and developing it as a platform. I mean, Steve Jobs was the head of all of that, and I'd like to see how most of that, how that takes over in the future. Despite now that he's gone, I mean, there was lukewarm, and that's being nice, lukewarm reception to the iPhone 4S. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes over. But yeah, he will be missed as an industry head, and best wishes to his family. To our main agenda, we wanted to bring up the topic of digital distribution. It's huge through PC, Steam. EA has their own service now, Origin. Um, there's games for Windows Live. Now starting with certain things on the consoles, Xbox Live, the PlayStation Network. They don't do as much. They are trying to do better, but there's issues with them. Um, Soundman, I'm going to let you take it from here about Steam and the PC side of things.
Well, the PC is many have labeled as a dying platform, but and they base that off taking retail sales numbers. What most people don't realize is that digital distribution numbers are not taken into account when calculating PC game sales. And it's estimated now that over 60% of all games sold on the PC are done so digitally. I used to hate digital distribution. I thought it was a terrible idea. I liked having my physical copies. You know, all the typical arguments you'll hear from people who are of, you know, the older generation of gamers. But now that I've had Steam for the last 5 years, 6 years, or however long it's been around now, I would never go back. In fact, now I rarely will go to the store to buy a game. If I can't activate it on Steam, or you know, if I can buy a physical copy, such as Left 4 Dead, and go activate it on Steam, I'll buy it. But I won't buy a game I can't activate on Steam anymore. And the reason for that is just the security of knowing that I can play the game anytime I want, anywhere I want, and download it anywhere I want. And yes, I'm one of those who does not take very good care of his game discs, and they tend to get scratched a lot, and that, you know, ties into the fact that I move all the time. And with Steam, I don't have to worry about that, and I can see my game library right there. I can show people what I have, and it's all really easy. I don't have to carry around a big lumbering set of discs, and I don't have to worry about inserting discs over and over and over again, which has been a real blessing with some games reaching, you know, over 30 gigs now.
But also with, you know, disappearing discs, I know me and Scrotus have talked about this before, and I know I'm sure he can comment on this, but what do you do with those people who have to have physical copies? I mean, eventually, I mean, the DVD's running out of space, Blu-ray is a good answer for the time being, but eventually all that's going to disappear. I mean, what do you do for those people that absolutely have to have the box copy and just won't settle for something you download?
Well, you have the ability to make a backup of your games. Last I checked, you can make a physical copy of the game that you want. You know, generally, if I can get a game in the store and activate it on Steam, I will do that. For example, the latest release from THQ, Space Marine, you're able to activate that on Steam as well as install it from the disc. I like doing that because I can install it from the disc, you know, 10 times. I can install it from the disc 10 times faster than I can from downloading it, and you know, I'd rather do it that way.
Yeah, digital distribution. I am one of those people that I like to have a physical copy of the game in my hand just because it costs. If I'm going to be paying a premium price, I want a physical item in my hand, not electronic data sitting on my hard drive. It just feels like I just threw money at somebody and didn't actually get anything for it. Now, on the flip side of that, if they're offering me a price where in a brick and mortar store it's going to be $60, and if I can get a DD for half that or less, then definitely I would go with the DD option instead of the brick and mortar, because that's just, you know, makes obvious sense because it's cheaper. But a lot of places like the console DD options, they're actually charging more or the same price as a physical copy being sold in a store, which makes no sense to me.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because we did an article on this earlier, but digital distribution, at least on the PC side of things, is far more lucrative for companies. For example, when you sell a game in a store, you have to print the disc, you have to pay the workers to print it and work the factory, and then you have to package it, ship it off to a store. You have to pay those shipping costs, and then the store holds it and charges a markup. And by the time all is said and done, the developers only make about $6 out of a $60 game in profit. It's a pretty small margin. The rest goes to licensing fees, shipping costs, production costs, etc., etc. With a digital distribution sale, the average profit is $35 or $40 on a single sale. So the profit is great, is largely higher than if you were to buy it in the store. So I think that's one of the reasons a lot of companies such as EA and Steam have been pushing their titles to digital distribution because they make a lot more money, and I think that helps offset the cost problems that they incur when they run into piracy and such.
Not only that, keep this in mind. Though you guys have been speaking on the bad parts of digital distribution, and I agree there are plenty, one being the fact that a lot of the digital distributors, like other than Steam, I'm speaking purely on a console basis, they gouge their prices for something you don't get in a physical copy. Keep this in mind. If you don't have that said console, or as bad as operating systems have been recently, you have to reformat your hard drive. God forbid you lose that disc. You know what? Your digital distributor still has that key on file, and still you have the ability to get that game downloaded onto your system and played without the need for a disc, which is one of the great things that digital distribution has brought to us.
And I would totally agree. There's been numerous times that I have lost my game key, and my only, option is to go pirate a key. And, it's not particularly legal, but I bought the game, so I run into that sort of gray area where I have already purchased it, but I'm having to use not so legitimate means to, play my title. Steam does a fantastic job of solving that by listing the key that you purchased, so you could hypothetically go activate a physical copy of the game with that key without even having to use Steam. I know there's several titles you can do that with that are currently on Steam, but yeah.
Well, and something, it's not, I wish the consoles would do more of it and it wouldn't price gouge. For instance, on the PS3, the God of War series, well, the PSP remakes, the HD versions they made, it's $40 in the store and it's $40 on, the PlayStation Network. You, like Soundman said, you cut out all the, distributing costs, you cut out all of that, and why is it still the same amount? I mean, you're saving me the gas to go to a store. Some people, who knows, a store may be 10, 15 miles down the road for them to go get a game. Why isn't this cheaper? Why aren't consoles making this more of an attractive offer if, for any reason down the road, this is what they're going to turn to because, disk space is limited and it's already starting to show its, age. On the flip side of this, also, what happens to, publishers? They're the ones who most of the time front the money to publish these games. What happens to them, if this disappears? Since a developer would make more money on a digital copy versus a retail copy, if the retail copies are gone, what happens to these publishers?
Keep in mind, publishers don't only publish physical copies of the games. Publishers are also the PR representatives most times, and publishers are the ones that will that will put out the advertising and will deal with most of the marketing aspects of the game. So if you see, for example, ID Software is the one that put out Rage, but Bethesda is the one that did the actual developing of it. Therefore, even if it was purely digital distribution, the marketing side of it is where the money went to anyway, regardless of if they put out a physical copy. They've saved money there too. But on that same token, like you said, where is the incentive to go towards pure digital distribution if they're not offering any kind of a price cut for the same product that they didn't have to spend as much to send out?
I would attribute some of this to I would attribute some of it to actual greed, and I can't prove it. I can't. I don't have any hard facts to support that, but you see it a lot with Steam. Steam's prices are generally lower than what you see in the store, except for very specific titles. Generally, they're specific Activision and EA titles that are never on sale. Most of Valve's top sellers are well below what you'll catch them for in the store. Half-Life 2 in the store still runs for $40-50, but you can pick it up on Steam for half that. Left 4 Dead is still $40-some in the store on PC, but if you buy it on Steam, it's $20. So the prices are significantly lower, and Steam tends to offer a better price. Where I don't generally see that is from the major publishers, and Activision, I think, is a prime example of this with Call of Duty. 2-3 years later after its release, it's still going for $60. Whereas Bad Company 2 is selling for $19. I think it's more of a greed issue more than it is not wanting to offer that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. They definitely are taking advantage of the digital distribution with the lowering cost, but increasing a profit margin.
So what is it that we as gamers can do to avidly try to make some sort of stand or change the way that this is happening? It seems like there's no way to actually convince people to boycott a specific company, especially someone as large as Activision. As a matter of fact, I was looking as Soundman was just saying that Call of Duty, years after the fact, is still high priced, and even on Steam, Modern Warfare 2 is still selling at $30, which I can go anywhere and pick up. I can go to GameStop and pick up a copy of Modern Warfare 2 for $7. It's unacceptable to see these publishers putting out products and not attributing anything to their clientele. What can we do? Do any of you guys have any sort of an answer?
Well, I think first and foremost that they have to realize that, gamers we're an intelligent bunch. I mean, we always look for best deals. We always look at, we price compare a lot, I think more than, the average consumer does, because we spend, we love our games, and we're willingly throwing out $60 a game. And I mean, heck, I think it was last year or the year before or something, I spent I think it was between $900 to $1,000 from September until December on games. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of money I'm throwing to these companies. And, if you offer me a better, Steam, if you offer me a better price for the service, I'm going to pick up on that. And, I always hold out for a certain retailer that has, a better deal. They have to give me incentives. Microsoft, Sony, even Origin or whatever, they have to Steam is the de facto setup. They need to look at them. They need to see what deals they do, what people flock to. I really think Microsoft, Sony, everyone needs to pay attention to Steam and see how they do business, because they're doing a great business, and I don't know. I think Steam, everyone needs to not essentially copy it, but they need to really look into them.
The only answer I could give with them price gouging with digital download is to simply not buy the product. Not buying the product means they're not getting money, so they're going to obviously drop the price to bring people in.
Keep this in mind. If they're not having to pay for a physical product to begin with, they're not necessarily losing money. They're just not making money. And the way a lot of things work, as long as they're not bleeding in the pockets, they're not going to really worry about it. And I think that's where the problem lies. Steam does a great job. Every year you'll see them come out with this week of just insane sales where there's entire publishers selling their entire product catalog for pennies on the dollar, and you don't see that in the console digital download area, which is something I think is almost tragic.
And I'd like to see some more of it on Xbox. I know they've got some of their more classic games that are available on there. Both PlayStation and Xbox have their stores that you can buy digital titles on, but you don't see some of the top tier titles available for digital download. And sometimes I don't want to go to the store to buy the game. I'd rather just get it there on my console. That being said, Joe mentioned voting with your wallet. And that's a hard thing for people. A lot of people don't want to wait to get a game until it's better priced. They want it on the day of the release. I mean, just look at midnight releases. The day that PlayStation 3 was released, there was a line 3 blocks long out the side of Best Buy trying to score the first systems. You saw the same thing with Halo. You see the same thing with Gears of War, Call of Duty. All these titles, people line up out the door in droves to get them. And these companies know that they are willing to spend $60 or more. I mean, Activision is so sure of their titles that they not only are going to sell you the games, but then they're going to sell you map packs that are twice as expensive as any other game. And on top of that, then charge you for a service to do stat tracking, something that's traditionally been free forever.
Well, that adding on stuff also is the reason why they do midnight releases. They get you into GameStop, they get you into a Best Buy. I mean, essentially you're gonna walk in, see the game. I did this with Halo 2. I bought a T-shirt and some other stuff whenever Halo 2 came out. So a lot of it has to do with marketing. They see, ooh, they can sell you a $20 T-shirt. It costs them $1.50 to make. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to basic retail. But at the same time, they would make at least me as being a majority console owner, I would be a lot happier if, sometimes I didn't have to go out at midnight. If I can maybe do like a Steam, do a preload, and as soon as, 12:01, my copy becomes unlocked and I can just sit down and play it. I mean, I have a 250 gig hard drive on my Xbox and I'm using half of it. The other half I'll probably never even, it'll be untouched. So I wish that they would really, they brought this games for, the games on demand portion to the, games menu on Xbox Live. I really wish they would do more with it. Roost is on there right now. I've been looking to play Roost. I saw it in Target the other day for $20. It's $30 on there. They just need to stop price gouging. They need to let me do things I want to do with my console. And I don't know. I think they would have more people on board if they would do something like that.
One thing I've noticed between brick and mortar and digital download, if a regular chain store is not selling that product very well, they drop the price to unload the product. Digital download, on the other hand, they're just dropping it to the price point that they feel it should be, and they don't care about if they have products sitting on a shelf not making money. So the brick and mortar stores may, at least for now, some games that aren't selling well drop in price a lot quicker and can therefore be cheaper than digital download, at least for the consoles. It seems to be an ongoing trend. You can definitely notice it with Xbox and PSN across the board.
Yeah, and Microsoft and Sony have been doing this thing where weekly they do sales and whatnot. Like, they could get Doom 2 for $2 or something that week, but they need to do a little bit more than that. Cutting something in half for a week and then disappearing, and then it gets shoved back in the catalog for, $15. And they continually do price cuts also. I've been noticing that, but I just still feel like if they want to progress towards this digital distribution age, they need to do a better job. They need to improve on why I, would want to buy the game off of their service versus getting in my car, driving 10 minutes to the nearest GameStop, and then coming back home and enjoying it.
The chances of us as gamers being able to convince these companies as large as Sony and Microsoft that digital download, although it may be the future, and for all intents and purposes I honestly think that it is, even though it's the next thing to really take off, they need to have a little more control in what they're doing with it. Right now, they're trying to rip people off purely because they don't have to pay for shelving or for space for it being digital, which is great for them and whatnot. However, I will never pay full price for a digital download, seeing as it's not a physical copy. I don't see how that company deserves to make that much of a profit margin off of something that they're offering at a brick and mortar store for sometimes half the price.
My biggest concern with digital distribution, and this is for me as someone who's a huge proponent of it, I buy everything on it pretty much. But my biggest concern is, for me, I own over 200 games on Steam. So, basic calculations, I've got over $2,500 worth of games. A lot of money. What happens if someone hacks my account and I'm all of a sudden out of every game I've bought over the past 5 years or so? Or I know I've seen this before. If you get an illegal key and you activate it, hypothetically, Steam can ban your account, and there has been times where you could do something and it will get your account banned, and that doesn't mean just from that one game. You'll get it banned from everywhere. You can't play any of your games anymore, and you're essentially out of that money. And there's a big argument to the sake of, do you really own your games in for digitally distributed games? Do you really own them? Because if you get your account banned, you don't really have any ownership. But if you don't have any ownership, that brings up some legal questions.
Well, if you ever read like all the legal mumbo jumbo, you don't actually own a game whether you physically buy it or buy a digital download. You're just licensing it for use. It still gives them the right to say that if they don't want you to use it anymore, they can revoke your access to that product.
Yeah, very true. Just like, there's tons of hackers all over Modern Warfare 2 for the 360 version, and they can ban any one of them if they want to. And with that, I want to thank you guys very much for coming on this week and talking.
Thank you for having us.
Not a problem.
Anytime, fellas.
Okay, and we will see you guys next week.